And speaking of people unemployed, we're gonna talk about Felicia Sonmez. That's right, that's a Washington Post reporter who sued the outlet not too long ago for sex discrimination because they tried to keep her off of reporting. And well, they just fired her yesterday in a shocking turn of events. Now, the New York Times, they explored the sudden termination of Sonmez. They reported this: Felicia Sonmez was fired over email on Thursday afternoon, according to one of the people. In an email termination letter, which was viewed by the New York Times, Ms. Sonmez was told that the Post was ending her employment effective immediately for misconduct that includes insubordination, maligning your coworkers online, and violating the Post standards on workplace collegiality and inclusivity. The email also said Ms. Sonmez's public attempts to question the motives of your co-journalists undermine the Post reputation. We cannot allow you to continue to work as a journalist representing the Washington Post, the letter said. Now, Sonmez sued the paper and several top editors last year, saying that they had discriminated against her by barring her from covering stories about sexual assault after she had publicly identified herself as a victim of assault. The case was dismissed in March, with the judge noting that the Post had attributed the coverage bans not to her being a victim of sexual assault, but to concerns that her public statements had created an appearance of bias. And in the past, Sonmez has had widespread support in the newsroom. Hundreds of her colleagues signed a letter on her behalf in 2020 after then editor Marty Byrne suspended her for tweeting an article detailing a rape allegation against NBA legend Kobe Bryant shortly after his death. Soon after the paper's guild sent that letter to management, she was reinstated. Yeah, so if we want to go ahead and talk about what seemed to have led to this most recent incident in terms of her termination, let's go ahead and dive into that quickly. So we know on Friday afternoon, Sonmez called Weigel out for his tweet. This was a few weeks back. First in an internal Slack channel, and then 2 minutes later on Twitter. Now, within 90 minutes, Weigel had apologized and taken down the tweet, and national editor Matej Gold had, in the same Slack channel, put out a note to assure all of them that the Post is committed to maintaining a respectful workplace for everyone and that they didn't tolerate demeaning language or actions. Here's the tweet at issue, and it's Sonmez essentially engaging in sarcasm, where she had, this one isn't it, but I'm sure they'll find it. She had quote tweeted the gentleman, there you go. Fantastic to work at a news outlet where retweets like this are allowed. Yeah, and of course, he ends up getting suspended. And then around the time, about 24 hours later, Sonmez was still tweeting about a lack of accountability. She then got into a Twitter disagreement with a reporter named Jose A. DeReal, and the two went back and forth, where he had the nerve to try to call her out. This is about June 4th, so about last week. And she let him know, I'm not here for it. His retweet, it was terrible, unacceptable. And then of course, the DeReal guy, he just continued to go in on her, saying that she was undermining him as a colleague, and then of course he was like, yeah, it's one thing to fight for sexism and misogyny, but and I think you're brave, but still you should reconsider the quote unquote cruelty you regularly unleash against your colleagues. Oh my God, the snowflakery is just beyond. I can't handle it. Anyway, it just seemed to go in-house, back and forth. A lot of people supported Sonmez online, and DeReal ended up locking his account, leaving Twitter for an amount of time. He came back, and then of course now we're at the situation here where they went ahead and fired Sonmez. And of course they did it on a night that they knew that the news cycle would be pretty busy. And I really think that that speaks volumes about the Washington Post, but I think they are acting in a way that's very chesty, in part because of who their ownership is. But I don't know, what are your thoughts, Brett?
I think in the wake of something like this, you should be skeptical of anyone who starts their conclusion with, you see. There's a lot of you see people out there, the same as there were with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, the you see crowd. You see, don't believe women. You see, believe all women in all situations at all times. Like, focus, I would say generally, you should believe what can be proven. And I think that's crazy. It sounds crazy to a lot of people, but I think if you enter a situation like this with that in mind, it allows you to take the facts of a specific case into consideration. And if you also find yourself thinking to yourself, like, I need one person in this story to be fantastically good and another person in this story to be fantastically evil, you're playing into someone else's game. So there's all kinds of stories like this and not like this that are thematically related. When you look into a controversy that arises, a immediate action and then another action afterward that's a reaction to general public sentiment, usually that proves that the major organization, in this case, the Washington Post, is just kind of, I know which way the wind is blowing. And they probably thought they knew which way the wind was blowing when they made their original conclusion, which was to suspend Dave Weigel. In this situation, I don't know her. I don't know what her previous lawsuits really were. I don't know. It seems like it was thrown out on a technicality, but there's a lot of people saying that, oh no, they threw out the case. Who knows? I think in this situation, generally, if someone like Dave Weigel retweets an off-color tweet and then immediately says he's sorry, I think apologies should mean something, especially when it's a tweet and not like a physical action of violence. And for all the people who tell me that words are violence, like that's disproven before a court of law that all kinds of words are explicitly violence. There's ones that are direct calls to violence, and then there's others that are like, this joke made me feel bad. And you are insane, I hate to say it, if you think that a joke that made you feel kind of bad is as bad as someone saying, I'm coming to your house and I'm gonna murder you. Those things are different and we should treat them as such.
Okay, well, I don't know, but you dancing around a whole lot of stuff, but I'll damn sure tell you, I don't know the players in this in a personal way at all. I've kind of been on the precipice of knowing about the situation with Felicia Sonmez and her lawsuit. And I can tell you that this definitely seems pretextual in some way. As far as the Weigel stuff goes, yeah, I think the retweet and stuff, yeah, it's definitely sexist, misogyny. I get it. At the same time, I definitely think that I was shocked when I heard he was suspended for it. But I also realized I don't necessarily know what's going on behind closed doors. I don't know what more was the issue. This could have been a time where they had told him multiple times, don't do this, and he did it. I don't know, but they decided to make their decision. As far as terminating her for saying insubordination and calling people out, I also think, again, I think it's pretextual. I think that this is retaliation for her filing the lawsuit. I think it's also retaliation for her standing up for herself. I think she has a lawsuit lined up without question. And I think she's gonna get a nice settlement, but the reality is, again, I think the Washington Post is flexing because they know who their daddy is. They know how deep their pockets are. They also know what the limit of the amount that she would ever get in court anyways would be, because unfortunately, when it comes to sexual harassment, discrimination lawsuits, Congress has set a cap, and they set it back during, I think, Bush era's first era. So it also hasn't increased, although inflation has. So it is so marginal that it's like you get $350,000 for compensatory damages and including punitive damages. So essentially that's why people act up and they violate the Civil Rights Act all the time when it comes to your employment, because Congress has it capped in terms of how much you could take home. So, Washington Post knows that. So they unfortunately kicked it to the streets and did it in a very inappropriate way. But this is unfortunately, it's a product of our system and how it operates and it works. But let's not pretend that she was out of pocket or off color. She was just tired of their nonsense and decided to speak out more. And I am a fan of speaking out. And yeah, I just hope she has a good settlement. And also I've been told I need to plug my book, which is Staying in the Game, the playbook for workplace sexual harassment, an award winner. And it's also in the TYT shop, so definitely pick up yourself a copy. And it definitely will give you all the tools of the trade, not just for workplace sexual harassment, but for any kind of workplace suit where they might be treating you a little bit differently than how they treat everybody else. Because that's exactly what they did to her here. And people will do that to you, and so you gotta be lined up.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.